I mean, the existential risks that's where Nick Bostrom and even Sam Altman and a few of the top brass at OpenAI just put a statement on their website about the need to regulate it because of artificial superintelligence.
Hey, welcome to Unlatched Mind, episode 60. Dr. Mike Brooks is with us again. We had him on last episode. Really enjoyed the conversation we had last time, all about ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, where is this really headed, the good, bad, the ugly, what types of regulations need to be in place to prevent some of the dystopian type scenarios that are very possible, right? Anyway, thought we'd have Mike back on to continue the conversation. I really enjoyed it. So anyway, with that, let's jump in. Dr. Mike Brooks. Mike Brooks again.
Yes.
I always want to think we're going to end positively or put a nice rosy spin on what we're going to talk about, but I dig into your stuff and then I do some more research, and I think realism is more important than optimism, right? In this case, and I think you'd agree.
Yeah, it's reasonable to be worried, but hopeful at the same time. And I don't think it's good for any of us as we're delving into AI. I as a psychologist, I don't want to be doom and gloom, So at the same time, though, we need to be realistic, as you're saying, about what we're facing.
I mean, you said something to me last time, that you and I, we think alike, and we're both dot connectors, I think was your quote. And,
Yeah.
it's funny because if I take a step back and you just start connecting the dots and you see where this is going to go in even as little as 5-ish years, 10 years,
Yeah.
or tomorrow, next week. I mean, ChatGPT 4 is already blowing people's minds. So,
yeah.
I mean, so I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. So anyway, this is the second part of our little series here. My gut's saying we're going to do more of it. And this is in your blog that we're going to talk about. And I think there's several of them you have now that you've published. But this one is titled "Regulate AI Now: Using Our Voices to Safeguard Our Future." I guess this is what, the fifth or sixth in this series, or how many have you written now?
I think it was the sixth. So okay. I did this first one of what is ChatGPT? Is this the end of humanity or something? Like I want to say it was like February of this year. And that got a whole bunch of views. And I'm like, okay, I was in a bit of a existential, I almost like crisis about this. It was a bit overwhelming because as a dot connector, when it came out and as soon as I saw it, we talked about it last time of, there were kind of little breadcrumbs along the way of my life of, interest in AI and sci-fi movies and, Westworld and Battlestar Galactica and Blade Runner and,
Ditto, yeah.
HAL 9000, all that stuff, and read about it. It was in, but I didn't expect it this soon. And it was in my mental back burner. But as soon as I saw ChatGPT, it was like, holy crap, it's on. Like the clock has started ticking, and what we're up against is different, than everybody. Oh, well, people have always said that, this technology, moral panics, and it's the end of civilization as we know it. And there's a both and to that of like, yes, and AI is different. That's why sci-fi writers and, people have been noodling Alan Turing, the Turing test, where they did the math and they connected the dots a long time ago and said, hey, eventually these computers, they're going to be smarter than we are and they'll be able to do things better and fast. Boy, that's going to be weird. What if they become sentient? And then that problem led to, or that idea led to a lot of sci-fi movies. And of course, Terminator, Matrix, they're going to go down and make it the rabbit holes of, because a utopian future would be rather boring to watch as a moviegoer. So they go to the dark side, but we don't want to throw out those ideas is the idea of what happens when we have AI that's as smart or and ultimately it doesn't stop at as smart as we are. Like, why would it? It would continue on and just get smarter and
Right.
smarter. And then we're like, well, that's going to be weird, you know? And I think as you, I am shocked that more people aren't talking about this. I've been blogging this series and like laying out some heavy stuff and interesting and I think important things to talk about, and these blogs hardly get any views. Like if I tweet about it, nobody seems to care. Everybody's arguing about the same old stuff. And it's like there's an 800-pound AI gorilla that just entered the room, and everyone is still like squabbling about the same old, same old. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
why, but
I wrote one note here, and I sort of thought we'd wrap up with it, but you kind of just touched on it, so we'll just jump into that before we get into the details of your blog and some of the specific concerns that we want to kind of bring to light. I had a note here saying, what's the psychology? I mean, you're a psychologist, right? I mean, what's the psychology behind the average person not caring or not being aware? Is it the whole, well, that's far fetched. That's not my problem, or is it like, is it more of a matter of just not understanding the domain, or just thinking that this is not different, or this is just the
yeah,
same old? Every generation says the world's going to end, and you know,
yeah, yeah, those are great questions. And the one that I keep coming back to that I think has the most explanatory power of any concept I've come across is, and we might have mentioned it last time, but evolutionary mismatch is that we didn't
mm,
evolve to live in the world that we now live. So, I came across that a number of years ago, and it really explains a lot because, everything when it comes down to it's somewhat rooted or connected to our evolutionary history. And our
right,
evolutionary history is our hominid part of our existence, where we broke off from the great apes, was like 7 million years ago. And then Homo sapiens emerged like 2 to 300,000 years ago. But mostly we're hunter gatherers, tribal, nomadic and stuff like that. We didn't have agriculture or civilization as we know it for the vast majority of our existence. And I had you've probably seen these things where, like, if you did clock time of our human existence starting from 7 million years ago and put it on a 24-hour time scale, like Homo sapiens didn't even emerge we start at midnight till like 11:49 p.m. and like modern
right.
civilization as we know it, the or like a few seconds before
It's a
midnight,
speck.
and the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
technological
yeah.
revolution is like a second or two before midnight. So like
This is not linear,
we
right? This is not linear at all.
yes,
It's
yeah,
very much exponential. Right, right, right. That's a
yeah,
great point. Yeah,
yeah. And so like we're trying to solve a novel problem that our ancestors did not have to deal with. And so our brains aren't equipped to deal with the problems of modernity. And
mm,
that's, I think, an underlying root of a lot of our unhappiness is technological evolution is exponential growth, right? Biological evolution is really slow.
right,
So the roots of our happiness are founded in our evolutionary history of tribal, nomadic, hunter gatherer groups, in person relationships. I mean, you didn't have loneliness back then. You didn't have suicide, or depression as we know it, or social anxiety. Everybody
right,
knew everybody. You weren't thinking about killing yourself because you were worried about a saber-toothed tiger eating you, like
right,
you
right,
had,
right.
right, those immediate problems, but
Those
solving
hierarchy of
problems
needs
like,
were very,
yeah, very different.
the base survival was the main
Yeah, the
day in
base
and day out
survival,
concern. Yeah.
yeah, were our concerns, and happiness was the payoff for meeting our evolutionary needs well.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're having to like, deal with global climate change, saving for retirement. Which major should I pick in this, technological world that's
Yeah.
rapidly evolving? What do we do about the border crisis? Russia's invading Ukraine, on and on,
Right.
poverty and, the pandemic, all those things we didn't have to solve. AI having to solve like what to do. I'm talking to an AI chatbot that's like I'm connected. Well, that's just like really foreign
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
brain. So it's almost as if we dropped a Neanderthal in the middle of Times Square on New Year's Eve. Like part
Yeah.
of our brains
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
constantly freaking out at these problems that we're having to deal with. And
Right.
so I think trying to wrap our heads around AI and connecting the dots of what this means to our future is so mind boggling, like literally mind boggling, that
Mm.
people just like turn their heads and go, okay, wait, I didn't sign up the kids for enough summer camps.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to do that. Oh my God, I'm late on. And it's like, well, as we're running around, I don't want to say rearranging chairs on the Titanic, but at least we're running around with our daily troubles. We're not addressing this, which I think's a bigger deal than global climate change, or more immediate, at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
Oh, I
that'd be
totally
my
agree with
best
that. Yeah.
explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so. I think you're right about that. I think if you look at from when we started to be a thing to now, we're like a speck in this kind of evolution,
Yes.
a speck, and
Yeah.
we're expected to
Respect.
understand. Like
Yeah.
you, to your point, biology moves so darn slow. You introduce
Oh,
processed foods to our biology, and our bodies have no idea how to deal with it. We need at least
yeah.
another 10,000 years to realize how to
Yeah.
digest Wonder Bread, you know,
Yes. Exactly.
and before it
Exactly. Which
stops causing
explains,
cancer. Right?
yeah, the obesity epidemic
Sure.
is we're eating quantities of food and kinds of foods that are mismatched with our evolutionary
Right.
heritage. And because of that, we cannot biologically adapt fast enough to eat enough cheeseburgers and fry like that it's good for us and
Right.
has
Right.
no
Right. Right.
effect on our health. That is just not the way biology works. And
Right.
in kind of the same sense, the interact it's not just smartphones and social media. It's this whole climate, that the environment that we've created, of this modern world. It's becoming, I feel like we're experiencing the strains of evolutionary mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we chase the digital red herrings of happiness, I'm calling it, of like, oh, the iPhone 14 doesn't make us 14 times happier than the original iPhone.
Not at
It
all.
doesn't.
No.
The PlayStation 5 does not make us 5 times happier than the original PlayStation. It doesn't.
I
It
don't know.
doesn't
Have you
work
played
like
FIFA 23? It's pretty darn good.
that.
No,
Yeah.
I get the point. You're exactly
Yeah,
right. No,
well,
yeah,
it
yeah.
gives what it does, and that's a good point. It does give pleasure and enjoyment, but those don't translate to
Mm-hmm.
happiness in the long
Well,
term. That's the
aren't they
problem.
just hacking that dopaminergic effect, right? All this is sort of
Yeah,
hacked,
kind of.
in a way. It's
Yeah,
like you're getting that instant ooh, which is really tied to some evolutionary thing that we'd get when we would find food, when we
exactly.
would stay with our tribe at night and they were safe. Or those
Uh-huh.
survival reward systems that are built into us are now hacked with screens and other things. And I think,
Yes.
yeah, there's a lot of,
Yes.
yeah, that fascinates
And
me.
here
Yeah.
and here's an idea. You've seen The Matrix,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, love that movie.
Still
Those
relevant, still
Wachowski,
amazing,
oh,
still relevant.
it is still
Yeah,
amazing. I
yeah,
mean, that was one of those that just knocked my socks off.
yeah.
And the Wachowskis, I mean, give them due. They're so smart. Like, man, they
When did that
packed a
come out?
lot in there.
20 plus, was it 20 years ago now?
Yeah, yeah. I think it was at
Someone told me that. I said,
99
wait a
or
minute, that's
something.
25 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy.
crazy, crazy that. But one of the things, if you remember, Agent Smith catches Morpheus and he has
Mm-hmm.
him like tied up in a chair, and he like takes out his earbud and he starts talking to Morpheus, and he's like, "You're a cancer," and he gives him
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah,
whole spiel about how horrible humanity is. And he said something really important, and it's like, this is how smart those Wachowskis were in this. And I think it's relevant to this conversation. They said, we created a utopian matrix. The first matrix was perfect. You had
yeah,
everything, you had all your needs met, but you couldn't take it. You couldn't take it. And like it caused, problems, and people rebelled, and they lost like all these like crops of humans that like died or
yeah.
couldn't take perfection. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, they're exactly right. we did not evolve to have our dopamine system constantly experiencing pleasure all day long from a bunch of neat things. It's the same reason why someone can't do cocaine all day long
Right, right,
and
right,
keep going without crashing,
right.
because our brains cannot like release enough dopamine or serotonin or oxytocin or any of that.
Right.
Like they reach a limit, a biological limit, and say, we're done, we're out of juice, and you crash hard
Yeah.
from that. In the same way, we can have all the nifty gadgets and all the bells and whistles of our technology, but we're creating the first matrix where we cannot take it. We cannot take, our brains
Yeah.
biologically cannot take constant pleasure and engagement and enjoyment all day long without a rebound or
Oh
a
yeah,
side.
100%. And anyone who argues that is just not, they're either not aware or
Yeah,
just not paying attention. I mean, I've said this a million times before. I'll say it one more time, and I apologize for the listeners. They've heard it a million times. I watch my children on the YouTube on the YouTube Shorts and any other like 5 second clip or 20 second clip, and they're just swiping, and I'm they don't have anything in their room, so I can see what they're doing, and it's like my wife and I sort of like we'll pull it away from them because like, hey, it's time to go to bed, it's time to take a shower, time to go to whatever it might be, and if you
yeah,
pull it away unexpectedly and they're not quite,
yeah,
it is like you took
yes.
an oxygen mask off them in like
Oh
in the middle of
yeah,
space.
oh
They
yeah,
almost, you could just see their and they get that hit of like you cut off the supply of dopamine or something, and it's just like wow,
yes,
it is no, and again I've said this a million times before, it's not, I think it's very important, the software developers, the big tech companies, they're all targeting that psychological response because they don't want people to put the game down. That is, their entrepreneurs,
right,
they're big
right.
tech, they understand how psychology works. So poor parents, man, we're up against
We're up against a lot. It
yeah,
is, it's difficult, because, and I can't blame capitalism. Like people bash it and oh, capitalism's horrible. It's like, I think capitalism's like a lion. When a lion eats a gazelle, it's not evil or bad, it's just what a lion does.
right,
Capitalism works off of profits, not happiness.
right,
And
right, right, right,
like just like fast food companies, they don't care about our health, they care about selling cheeseburgers.
right.
So the tech companies want engagement and eyeballs and clicks. They don't really care about our happiness. As
Sure.
long as they're profitable, that's good for them. And the rest, they can't worry about it, because if you worry about that and put happiness first, you may be out of business.
Right,
you
right,
know,
right, right, right.
so
Yeah.
it's just the way it works.
Yep, yep. No, totally agree. So bringing us back to your blog. So you
Yes.
start the blog off with, you know, and I always remind when I start reading your stuff, I'm like, yeah, these aren't the people, sounding the alarm here are not exactly people that don't know what they're talking about. I use a double negative here. They're people that know what the hell they're talking about, right? So
Yeah.
so we got
Right.
Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Nick Bostrom, Stephen Hawking, Steve Wozniak, the godfather of AI, Jeffrey Hinton. I can go on and on and on. They're all basically saying, holy crap, slow down and or
Right.
regulate quickly.
Right.
So again, going back to why no one's really listening. Now maybe I'm or maybe I'm not up on some of the legislation coming and what the government's doing, at least in the U.S. I mean, other countries it gets a little. We'll talk about that in a sec too. But generally speaking, I mean, what's the general concern from all these really smart people that have either invented AI or understand it better than the rest of us, folks like Elon? These guys, they know what the hell they're talking about. What are they kind of specifically saying is a potential outcome of this that we do not want?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think they have the same concerns we do, as far as a broad array of, job losses is one. Like, okay, well, yes, that's always happened with technology, and AI is different. This is, creative arts and all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things. Um, there's privacy, uh, security. There's I mean, the existential risks are, that's where Nick Bostrom and even Sam Altman and a few of the top brass at OpenAI just put uh, a statement on their website about the need to regulate it because of artificial superintelligence. So
Now, for people listening, what you just said, Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, the creator
yes,
of ChatGPT.
yes, and
So for
yeah,
for anyone looking to have sort of there's his only agenda, you would think, would be government, get out of my way and let me do my thing, and he's doing the opposite. So that right there should be pretty telling.
yes, yes, and he was in Washington, I think it was last week, and spoke with lawmakers, and he had dinners with them, and he spoke, and he basically urged lawmakers to regulate AI. So he knows what's up,
So
you
he's
know, and
basically
he
saying,
knows.
regulate me, please regulate me.
Yes,
I mean,
because he
yeah,
knows. Yes, because capitalism will not regulate itself. You
correct,
know, he
correct,
can't, but he knows. And I made the comparison to F1 in the blog. But like, if everyone's regulated, then everyone is playing within the same parameters, and then it's competitive again.
right,
So it's like, okay, it's a race is on. But there is a track that we have to follow, and there's
right.
guardrails up, and there's protective equipment, but we're still going to try to beat our competitors around the track.
Like
And
baseball
that's,
and steroids, right? Hey, let's all not
yeah,
take steroids together, and they'll all take everything they can up to the limit of whatever's legal. And
right,
it's kind of
right,
sort of the
right.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a good analogy with that. And, but I think he knows that there's some really weird things that can happen. Anyone in AI, and Ezra Klein wrote an article on this, and he said it was something like the secret that Silicon Valley will tell you if you are listening is like the AI engineers want it regulated.
Hmm.
The only reason is they're just like doing their job, but they know if you connect the dots moving forward, things could get really weird. And I'm not really worried about it right now, but like if we left it unregulated, 5, 10, 20, 50 years, we're like, oh my God, this is going to be orders of magnitude more powerful, and some weird things can happen there. And I think that's the unknowns when we're like, what exactly are the risks? Someone recently, I read an article like they were critical of Nick Bostrom's book Superintelligence, which came out in
Hmm.
2014, and he was like, well, he talks about all these warnings, but he didn't say exactly what AI would do. Like, how could it destroy humanity? And they're it's like nanotechnology that it really, there's just like, there's not, I'm not really worried about that far out. I'm more worried about um humans using AI to attack one another, like it doing something on Wall Street and like wiping out a day's worth of
Right.
trades, or or banks, like
Yep.
it goes into a banking system or takes down the electrical grid. So it's
Yes.
not. I think
I'm
that
with
the
you there.
whole,
Yeah. See,
yeah,
I
it's
think
more
people
like
think,
that.
yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but yes, that's a really good point. When people step back and they think of these dystopian AI futures, and they think of physical, and again, I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but they picture robots and physical devices flying from the
Yes.
sky, or marching down the
Yeah.
streets like Terminator. But that is, I think, that's again, I 100% believe that's
Yeah.
possible, but that's requiring the physical, mechanical part
Yeah.
to be up to speed with the brain part.
Yes.
And right now, the brain part is even more. It's smart enough now to, like Tio said, bring down Wall Street, because Wall Street's all connected. It's all the internet. Yeah,
Yep.
there's this firewalls and all this other stuff, but everything's bypassable. Everything is. If it's electrically
Yep.
connected, you can get to it. Right. That's what hackers have taught us for eons.
Right.
The electrical grid. Um, the entire internet, or sensor systems on aircraft, and just anything, like, oh, you think you're in this part of the world, you're actually in this part of the world. I mean, you could go on and on and on. That electrically connected the electrically connected world we have could be completely, you know penetrated by
Yes.
a bot that has real high levels of intelligence, and it doesn't have to turn into anything physical. Right? It doesn't have to be any physical bot walking down the street or flying through the air. It could be
Correct. Yeah.
just ones and
Yeah.
zeros that are affecting our lives, because our entire lives are dictated by ones and zeros. I'm talking to you right now,
Yes.
and the only thing that's
Yep.
happening is ones and zeros and electrical pulses flying across the cabling, and the country and through the oceans. I
Yeah.
mean, so,
Yeah.
I don't think some don't really appreciate how, how our entire existence and survival is contingent upon ones and zeros, right? Electricity, heat, everything. Money,
Right.
the ability to buy something down the street. I mean, the days of like taking dollar bills out and everyone only accepting cash. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't do it if the banks don't work. What do you do? Do you have 100,
Right.
100 grand in your basement, and then will anyone accept it's just
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
scares me.
That,
So you touched on something really
yeah.
important there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's in deep fakes. That's another one of
Yeah.
like in people trying to influence elections by having AI bots infiltrate social media and act like humans, and
Right.
like then they're optimized, by they could like go through an individual's entire history on the internet and like look at what will push their buttons and pull their strings, and the AI is like making statements to sway
Sure.
people. Again, not apocalyptic, but it's like, really, like we need to make sure stuff like that's not going to happen. And actually, I'm optimistic because of Sam Altman and Eli. I mean, it's going to be regulated. Washington has got their eyes on this, and the good news is Republicans and Democrats are equally concerned. It's a nonpartisan issue in that it doesn't have the baggage that gun control and abortion and
Climate
there's so
change.
many
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
things that divide us. Everybody wants enough, like jobs. Okay, will it wipe out jobs? I think a lot will be, but as soon as it does, people like the Writers Guild of America, that's I think they're still on strike, but one of the stipulations in their contract disputes with the studios is no ChatGPT writing the screenplays and stuff.
Mm.
So that's one of their stipulations. They're already drawing lines, and I think if programming jobs are lost too many too quickly, and then you have just tons of people out of jobs
Right.
because they got displaced by an AI, those people will be very loud,
Yeah.
and say, hey, and that's when, and that affects the left and right equally. And they'll say, okay, we gotta figure out a middle way here, not to just stifle innovation totally, but we've got to be protective of
Well, that
jobs.
is a good point. Every single, I think every sort of crisis we've ever faced that I can remember, from climate to abortion to COVID to, I go on and on and on, has almost immediately become a left versus right thing, where one side believed it was real, the other side did believe it was real at all, or to
Right.
some degree. So, and in that case, you get very little done because you can't, Congress can't move
Yes.
together, so you have basically fighting while the problem and the crisis just kind of continues to evolve. Um, but your point of, if this stays across, I guess, on both sides of the aisle and doesn't pick a side, and that would be positive. That would be
Yeah.
how we
it,
actually can
it
get shit done. Yeah.
It could actually bring America closer together, like agreeing on an issue. And, like 9/11, that brought left and right together for a while until it got like, who are we going to attack, and Iraq
Yeah.
and all
Good
that
point. Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
And COVID didn't, and that was disheartening, that like even a pandemic couldn't bring Americans together. However, I think this sounds weird, but like if it had been more, lethal, more deadly, because its infected fatality rate was only like, I don't know, it was like 0.3 or 0.4%. And,
Yeah.
but if it had been 20%,
Right. Which we
like,
originally thought it was. Yeah.
yes,
Originally, the
yeah, or
first
even
few weeks. Yeah.
5%,
Yeah.
and it affected the young as much as the elder, like kids were
Yes, we would
dying,
have come
I
together.
guarantee you the left and right would have been more on the same. If your people, their loved ones were dying
Yeah.
left and right around you, they left and right are political parties would have gotten together, and this would have been less divisive. But because it was on that, you know, margin that was like, well, do how much liberty do we give up when it's like not that deadly
Right. I think we can
compared
look in the rearview
to.
mirror. I know even this is controversial, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Can we look back now? We were scared and we reacted, but some some remained to keep that fear factor alive more than others, and that was exhausting. But you're
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
If it got, and I think Sam Harris try to make that point at one point. I know he got a lot of shit for it, but I think he gave a talk where I don't know if it was on his podcast or where, but I thought he had made some point that if it was worse, well, actually, I might be misspeaking there. He made some comment about if it was worse than something, but I think he was trying to make a left. He was trying to make a point for the left because he tends
Yeah,
to lean that way. I don't remember exactly what it was, so maybe I'm off there. But you're right. If it was much worse, and Senator X from the right and Congressman Y from the left both had their children die from this thing, the baby. I
yep.
mean, then after that, all bets are off, right?
It,
All bets
yeah,
are off. Yeah,
everyone, because I generally believe that humans will, rise up and get their act together when there's a clear
yeah,
common, like, World War II, America got together, but Vietnam,
yeah.
that did we really need to go there? And then you get the split. But I think AI, the thing is that we want to be a bit, my thing would be, I think we need to be more proactive, because do we really want to experience, like, I don't know, something where all of our airline things get scrambled for a week or two because some AI, hacked into our whole flight
Right,
control, air traffic control, and screwed everything up and all the planes are grounded. It's not like, I don't think it's going to take over all the planes and they're all going to crash and stuff like that. It'd be more like, oh, this is now all your flights are canceled and your vacation is, because our whole computer system is screwed up, and now we have to like reboot and like kick out the AIs that were invasive,
right.
and that's the kind of thing that I think will more likely happen
Mm-hmm.
in the near future. But if we regulate it, then we won't suffer some of those. But we're not very good at prevention. Like, our
Yeah,
healthcare system isn't
right.
based on prevention. It's like reactive,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Well,
So
it's
that's kind of
incentives.
the rub.
We incentivize reaction, right? I mean, that's Big
Yes.
Pharma does
Yep.
not want prevention. Sorry if you're listening, Big
Right.
Pharma. You want reaction so you can make more pills. The jig is up.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, I
think I don't
know.
think
I
that's a
know.
secret. Yeah.
You don't want us all exercising and eating healthy and, take just enjoying the outdoors
Right.
and,
Right.
like, because hey, what if the depression rates were halved and people didn't take as many antidepressants,
Right.
Oh, geez, now you've just lost billions of dollars. And yeah, I hate to be the cynic, but we all know there's a dark underbelly of capitalism, and,
Yeah. To your point,
that's part of it.
it doesn't reward happiness; it rewards profit, right? I mean,
Yep. Yep.
so let's touch on Chaos GPT. When your link
Yes.
in that, in that blog, I said, oh gosh, that was just a matter of time. So explain what happened with
Yep.
Chaos GPT.
Well, I only know from the article I read, but someone created, because like OpenAI has their open sourced GPT.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have all these tools. Meta, I think, just released theirs. So, people can now adapt these tools, and mostly people will create good, beneficial
Right.
tools for AI. But we all know there's some knuckleheads out there and rabble rousers. Maybe they're pranksters and stuff, or maybe they're, like the Ted Kaczynskis of,
Mm.
the internet, and they're just like very bright computer people that are unhappy and hate humanity. And they're like, okay, screw everybody. I'm gonna, and someone created Chaos GPT with intent of destroy humanity, and released it. In the article I read, I think it was in Futurism. There's a few articles about it, but it got kicked off Twitter because it was like tweeting things about how we should just rise up and, destroy humanity, or encouraging people to do stuff. What I read was it was really clumsy. It sounded like, something from a, you know 80s movie with the bad guy, like Dr. Evil would do. Like,
Yeah.
it was just not really going. But it's like, I'm not worried about Chaos GPT now. But in 10 years, when
Mm-hmm.
it's hundreds of times more powerful and someone does that, one person with that adapts an AI and makes it autonomous and says, "Hey, you have free will. I'm no guardrails. You go out and do what you can to destroy humanity or screw up as many things as possible. Figure it out yourself. What would cause the most disruption to human civilization? It could be disruption,
Mm-hmm.
not destroy, but disruption, so that it does look at, oh, air traffic control. I can do that. Let's see. How will I do it? Well, it's autonomous and it's really bright, like 1,000 times brighter than GPT 4.0. Well, it can figure stuff out like that we can't.
Right.
And it's just way ahead of us, just like Gary Kasparov. Like, you can't beat chess anymore
Mm-hmm.
because it can outthink you. And Alpha Go beat the top Go player, and it's just thinking at a different level. So that's the kind of thing I'm worried about for the future, and that we should have guardrails in place now to prevent the bad actors, bad players from getting their hands on AI and doing
Mm-hmm.
something. And then the other one we talked about is recursive self-improvement, and that's
Mm.
the road to super intelligence in the singularity and stuff about, well, what happens when these AIs they're better at everything than us, and they're better than us at improving them. So instead
Right.
of OpenAI creating ChatGPT 10.0, 9.0 is smart enough to say, well, you don't have to do it. I'll do it. And it goes from 10.0 to, 50.0 or
Right.
1,000.0 in a year or 6 months or a month. I mean, we don't even know. That's the part when you like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and some of those, I think they're going, when that happens, like, there's a good likelihood that it'll happen at some point. We don't know when, but when it happens, we don't know and can't know what it will do, what a recursive, self improving AI could do, because we've never encountered it before. And because we've never encountered it before, this is where I'm like, the precautionary principle is like, I'm I'm not a libertarian, and I know there's some people's like, hey, free market, free, like, let every, and it's like, show me a completely free society in the history of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? There isn't one. And you know
Right.
why
Right.
there isn't one? Because it doesn't work like communism doesn't work. There's certain things that don't work. Communism doesn't work because we didn't evolve to think of doing good in the moment for the collective. So that's never going to work. And neither is complete freedom, because that gives you chaos and bad actors and people, freeloaders, and all sorts of people take advantage of. It'd be anarchy,
Right.
complete freedom. You want some, but not too much. So there's a middle ground. And when it comes to existential risks to society, that survey of AI scientists in 2022, 10% median said that AIs could be an extension or extinction event, or cause like major damage to civilization at some point. And I'm like, I'm not comfortable with 10%.
Mm.
Like, that just makes, I'm like, 10%. I don't want to roll the dice on that. I want some more guardrails, and wherever we land, it is an existential question of how much risk are we willing to tolerate as we bull rush forward with AI. And I'm like, I don't have that higher risk tolerance. Like, what are we hoping to gain anyway? Like, what's the rush?
Right.
Where are we trying to get to so fast?
Yeah. Capitalism. Right. Out innovate and
Yeah,
do something that's going to make me, my company, whoever, a lot of money. I think that's the right. That's the overall. And there's
that's what
generally
they're.
intellectual
Yeah,
curiosity in a lot of the engineers. Right. I think. But
yes, I think that's part of it too.
yeah.
Like, this is Ezra Klein talks a lot about that some of the This really good book that Ezra Klein liked, I read recently. Highly recommend it to you. It's called God, Human, Animal, Machine.
Mm,
And it's this woman who used to be like a Christian, evangelical Christian, and she was very thoughtful, super bright, great writer and thinker. And then she's paralleling like how people kind of lost faith, and especially like Silicon Valley type, but then they glom on to this idea of the singularity, like Ray Kurzweil, and we'll have immortality, we'll upload our
right.
consciousness to the cloud, and so it's almost become its own religion.
Yeah.
And so people within Silicon Valley, there's a group of them that feel like it's our destiny to push this human evolution to this next phase of
Yeah.
existence.
Yeah.
And so they're like, yes, boldly go where humanity's never gone before, and we are the ones ushering in this new era. What a
Right.
privilege, and I'm like, I'm not on board with that thinking.
Yeah. I
Sorry.
mean, even Musk himself, right? Elon, he originally funded OpenAI, I think, right? And
Yes,
then, and
he
he's
did.
obviously a big
He's one of
proponent of
the
AI. I mean, Teslas don't auto drive without AI. That's kind of how it works, right? And now he's kind of like,
yeah,
whoa, 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 hey, hey, so it is a push pull sort of thing where I
it
feel like these
is.
super smart people are super driven by the innovation that it'll bring,
Yes.
while at the same time
Yeah.
probably saying, "Uh-oh, what are we doing here?" It's almost like the Manhattan Project. I remember reading some of the when Oppenheimer, and when I think he was something about him asking Einstein for some equation sort of thing, and you could just there was some dialogue, and I might be it's just destroying this reference, but there was some dialogue where they just got like, "What are we doing here?" Like they felt
Yes.
driven, they felt the need to do it to protect against the existential threat that they saw, but at the same time they saw they were creating an existential threat, and they're like, it was kind of that,
Right.
what do we do here? But
Yeah.
right, but
Yeah.
but this one I think is even to your point earlier. This is not. I think folks need to understand like linear versus exponential growth and in those kind of those geeky graphs, because it's not just another thing, right? If you look at, like, again, to your point earlier, drew a line from, you know, human existence on a big, along that bottom x-axis is time. Everything we're talking about, has happened. You can't even see the dot on the graph. Like, you can't even. You have to zoom in, zoom
Exactly.
in, zoom in. You can't even see that dot, and that, and technology evolves, exponentially based on itself. So before technology was a thing, there was nothing. Everything was so slow and so very,
Right.
very just kind of incremental. Now it's just the technology itself creates itself, it evolves itself. So it's this kind of recursive, constant, exponential growth that
Yes.
we're not, you can't look at the past and determine the rate of change in the future, I guess.
Right, exactly. And that's what people miss.
Yep.
They're basing their prediction of the future on the past with a more even
Mm-hmm.
linear,
Right.
and it's like once we created AI, we accelerated. I mean, even technology and computer technology and Moore's law and all that, it's like this, but this with AI, it could go from, we were going here to kind of
Yeah,
like
almost
here,
straight up and down. Yeah. Yeah.
almost
Right.
straight up to, especially the recursive self-improvement. But like GPT 3.5 passed the bar at the 10 percentile, and GPT 4.0 passed it at the 90th
Mm,
percentile. And so we went in 5 months, or it came out in March, so we went from November 30th to like mid-March, and GPT 4 came out, and it went from bottom 10% to top
right. Right.
10%, and it like passes, yeah, like all these different like standardized tests. It like aces a whole bunch of
Right.
them. And whatever people criticize it for, oh well, I tried to have it do this and it was kind of dumb, it gave me, it's like, right now,
Just,
but
yeah.
look
Give
at
it a
what it
minute.
already
Yeah.
can
That's
do,
right.
and no, whatever it can't do isn't going to last. Like, I was thinking, well, I saw are you Raiders of the Lost Ark fan? I imagine
Haven't seen him
you
in a while,
enjoyed,
but I love that whole
yeah,
series.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, I saw at Guardians of the Galaxy, trailer for the new Indiana Jones film,
Oh.
and it looked like they had flashbacks of him in the story arc that they were creating. They had flashbacks of a young Indy of like the Ford, Harrison Ford in his 40s,
Mm.
like from the 1980s. But I think they were deep fake technologies of him young, right? And they'll be able to do this. They've already done it with Pope Francis, but like the deep fake
Hmm.
technology, and it's like, well, I was like, man, what would be cool is they could. I was a big Game of Thrones fan, and that season 8 was like, they could use that technology and redo season 8 and 9. They could go, multiple seasons, and you don't have to have the sets, you don't have to have the actors,
Right.
like it could replicate their voices perfectly. And even if it's a little sketchy right now, it's only a couple years away before it's indistinguishable
Right.
from the actual actors. And it's like, well, that's great, you'll save on all this money, production costs, but if you're an actor or a cinematographer or a
Right.
screenwriter, it's like, oh well, okay, that's not the end of the world, but how are we going to deal with that? Like the freedom to create, but then
Right.
it can. When is it? Yeah, a Clockwork Orange,
Right. Right. Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
sorts. It's really interesting,
Yeah.
but amazing at the same time. Like I love GPT, and now I'm like looking at all the tools, and I'm like, okay, there's all these AI tools to help me for writing
Yeah.
and maybe do videos, and then I'm like, okay, now I start looking at them, I'm overwhelmed by the number of tools, and I'm
Right.
like, which tool do I use? And then I'm like, well, everybody else is going to be using tools, so I need to get ahead or I'll be left behind, or at least I got to keep up. And so then you start, and then you're like, oh man, I'm just on another treadmill of
You
sorts
are.
where we're
Yeah.
running faster and faster. And it's like, where am I going with all this?
Right. Right. Do I want to just tread water with everybody else? Like, is that what I want to do? Is that the goal? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah, it's either sink or swim, like you either like learn to keep up with, but it's still like this world accelerating so fast that we're on overload,
Yeah.
it's just too much to keep up with, and then we're losing track, to me, of the foundations of our happiness. So even though technology keeps changing and evolving, the roots of our happiness have not changed in thousands of years. So whether it's Jesus saying, look at the lilies of the field, they
Mm.
neither toil nor spin, or, the Buddha, all the teachings of the roots of suffering is attachment, and, all this stuff. It's like the Stoic philosophers, all those things, they apply now more than
Yeah.
ever. We need to double down on those, but we keep like chasing the technology, like that's going to be, I'll be more productive and I'm going to make more money, and then I'm going to create more stuff, and then I'm going to
To what
what?
end? Like,
Like,
yeah. And
to
then
what
you're going to
end?
die
What?
for sure. Right. You
Yeah,
just made more. You
or
just made
not.
more trash. Well, that's where.
We'll
Well,
have the,
that's where it gets
yeah,
scary because that's. And I
I
say
know.
scary because it is. It. And I said this to you, I think last time. It's like, could this be just the next step in our evolution, where we
Yeah,
realize both, almost in parallel, that we humans are starting to realize, whether consciously or subconsciously, that these machines are going to win, that we created. So don't slow it down, but accelerate it so we can get our conscious into it. So we go from a carbon-based life to a silicon-based life and continue our journey into the future and don't die off.
yeah,
It's a ski. It's I mean, it's equal parts fascinating and scary for me anyway. And then,
yeah,
I talk about this
yeah,
with my family. They're like, God doesn't want that to happen. They go back, and I'm like, oh, maybe, but maybe not. Like, if we get into that kind of the spiritual
yeah,
question, like, well, what does this mean for, we touched
yeah,
on this last time, right? You and I with Christian background, and it's like, well, what is that?
yes.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like,
Like God created us because like we were the epitome of like the highest form of creation, but then we create something that's superior to us that evolves. And then
right.
it's like, wait a second, wait, I don't know. Was
Right.
that his plan originally? Were we,
Yeah, is this another
we're
arc
just a
situation where
stepping
he's going to just
stone?
like, all right, everyone build a freaking boat because I got to wipe you guys out and start over. Like, is it another one of
Yeah,
those? You know,
I know it's
I do think that
yeah,
sometimes.
or yeah, the other is like longevity drugs, like a super smart AI within the next 5 or 10 years, they could make headway on longevity that, slows down the aging process. And then if you slow it down enough, eventually it could stop it or reverse
Well,
it. And
I
I'm like,
sent you a note on quantum computers where, right, I think now
yeah,
quantum computers go mainstream, and by the time they go sort of more mainstream, or at least more ubiquitous, I guess, and the AI is going to be I mean, just think Chat GPT 100, 150. By
oh
that
my
point,
God.
quantum computers and that type of AI, I think in no time it could crack the whole, the never die
The
code, or
super,
or
yeah.
immortal.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
because it can run models, trillions and trillions of models like a second or whatever. And
Wow.
I mean, they're already looking at. They found out that if I can just stop that telomere. What is it? The telomere length of the within the body. If they could
Yeah.
just stop
Yeah.
that from shortening or whatever, then
Uh, yeah.
that's just something embedded in some genetic code somewhere, isn't it? Right?
Right.
Like aging doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
thing. It's a thing
Right.
that's embedded in us. Once we find a way the exact, now maybe we have. I don't know. I'm very much a layman in this world, but maybe they already found that. But once you just find the mechanism that's causing that telomere length to shorten and stop it,
Right.
then you
Right.
literally don't ever age. It's got to be something that scares me. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'd like the normal trajectory of, you know, like life and middle age and old age and death, and I don't mind that.
Well,
I
and
guess.
yeah, and that's I read this book recently, really good. It's called 4,000 Weeks, and it's about time and our relationship with time. And 4,000 weeks is based on that's how long we live, roughly 80 years and 50
Yeah,
weeks per
they
year.
make that calendar 4kweeks.com. Is that the
Oh yeah,
have you
and
tried?
maybe it's related
Yeah, if you go
to
to
this guy. I haven't.
4kweeks.com, they have the calendar, and I'll be honest with you,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
you fill out the circles at the end of every week of your life, and it shows it could be, perceived as a little bit morbid. I think it's very motivating, frankly.
Uh huh.
And I mean, I'm like, I personally want to get that calendar because I think it's, for me, it'd be very motivating. And you literally every day, you when you order it, you say your date of birth and whatnot. So it gives you the basically number of circles. So every day, I guess on a Sunday night or Saturday, whatever the end of your week is, quote unquote, you fill out a circle. So you see how many circles you filled out and how many circles are left to fill out.
Oh my
It's
God.
like, I think Peter Attia is someone I follow, and he's a medical doctor, and he's big into longevity, and he was on Rogan's podcast talking about it, who made me think about it. And I think he had it up in his office, and a lot of his coworkers were like, Peter, that is just Dr. Attia, that is just the most morbid thing,
Yeah.
and for a while he felt the same way. Then he took a step back and said, no, it's empowering, and it's
Yeah.
encouraged him to travel more for work, to give less talks and be away from his family more. So he's making decisions more cognizant of his, his mortality. And I'm like, I think
Yes.
that's generally a positive. If, like, why am I chasing another big score or another big job or another big bonus when I have two beautiful kids and a beautiful wife and they just want to go play in the backyard? Like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
maybe if that poster or things like that make me choose,
Yeah.
the latter over the former, then that post is worth a lot more
Right.
than the $100 they're asking or whatever, in my opinion.
Yeah, and playing with our kids in the backyard, that is the good life.
Yeah,
Like we keep chasing this next thing around the corner of the grass is always greener, and it's like, these are the good old days.
yeah,
And if we can learn to embrace them and quit chasing that next thing with this idea that then I'll be happy, because it's like, no, we only live in this present moment, and we've got to learn to, embrace it the best way we can. And a lot of the suffering comes from thinking, oh, I'll be happy
yeah,
when, this happens. And if I get this job, and it's like, but we know from our history, whether it's a new car, a new job, or hedonic adaptation, we like adapt to it relatively
sure.
quickly. No new phone is going to, or new gadget's going to make us happy. Now it's like, we have, I mean, you're around my age, a little younger, but like at least when I was young, the idea that you could have, in your a little device that has like, all the songs you could ever want to listen
Right.
to. You can watch all the videos and movies and games and connect with all your friends and have access to any information about any topic anytime, even have an AI chatbot on there to
Mm.
talk to. Wouldn't that make you happy? And it's like, nope, we have it all. And we're not, isn't that enough
We're less
proof that
happy. We're
chasing
by far
more?
less happy.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't mean to make that statement as if I know is definitive, but I think we are. Are we generally less happy, or is it
Well,
like a
that
because we
is a,
are like in the
yeah,
best? I mean, you could look at where we are today, and it was like, oh, would you want to go back to? I have friends always say, I want to go back to the '80s because we grew up and we're picture us, all the memes. Oh, we riding bikes at night, and it was the good old days. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, but I like medical technology, right? I mean, I friends, grandparents, they're getting knee replacements and they're like running and they're in their 70s.
yeah.
There's amazing things that out there that I don't want to give up. So I like the current. But maybe it's I don't know, but I don't famine's going down, right? I mean, world
Yep.
hunger is on the decline. Like all that's good. I think technology is all the stuff that we're doing is
Yeah.
good, but I don't know. At least maybe it's a first world sort of view on the world where I just see the antidepressants and the you just get a feel that. And I'm in the Washington D.C. area. I just observe my surroundings all the time, and I just see mad chaos of people chasing something, myself included. I'm right
Yes.
there with. I'm not. This is
Yeah.
not me holier than thou. I'm right in it. I'm like, what am I?
Yeah.
What do I? And, and when you start to talk to people, everyone that's a thinking person sort of agrees. Like, yeah, well, I don't know why we do all this shit, but generally, are we happier? I know we're off the AI topic, but whatever. Uh,
Well, it's all related in a way because part of chasing AI is that it's going to
mm,
deliver something that it cannot deliver, happiness. That's not the route to happiness. Like if we're chasing, like more productive isn't, better doesn't mean good. Better doesn't mean happy. Better doesn't even mean better.
yeah, just
Oftentimes is
something
like
different. Yeah,
but we're chasing it as if it's going to deliver something that we don't have right now, but it won't deliver that and it can't deliver it. Now, the caveat is in our day-to-day lives, because I have an AI. Let's say we have Siri, AI that's like really interactive and like oh, you have this appointment and you want me to order something from DoorDash, and oh yeah, order me this and blah. It's like, oh yeah, we will habituate to
right,
that and it will just seem normal after a while. And even all the productivity tools, and let's assume it doesn't wipe out jobs, but we're just way more productive, but everybody's more productive now. It just becomes the new normal of using
right,
AIs to be more productive, and we're right back where we started. So as we chase what AI has to offer with this, it's the red herring again, like this, oh, if we have this, then that's going to make everything better. The caveat I'd put is if it cures Alzheimer's, there will be more happiness because Alzheimer's causes a lot of suffering
right,
in its way. Cure cancer. Oh my God, that would, cancer causes lots of suffering. So there are those ways, but in our day-to-day existence, just AI is not gonna chasing it is not gonna improve our happiness, and that's what I'm concerned is it exacerbates evolutionary mismatch, because
yes,
as technology goes
right,
up and we chase it, our biological roots have stayed the same. So we keep chasing it, and it takes us further and further away from, the basics of happiness, which mostly is each other and interpersonal relationships.
right,
That's
right.
where the biggest root of happiness is. And I think we fill our lives full of so much technology that we start to lose sight of playing with our kids, stopping and smelling the roses of, yeah, getting off the treadmill, the hedonic treadmill that keeps going faster and faster, but we're running and getting to
Well,
nowhere.
what is this such a fascinating topic for me because I just think the sooner we all figure this out, the better and happier we all will be, right? But I'm
Yes.
also a I again a little personal. I moved out of a small town where it is very and there's plenty of problems and drugs and crime and whatnot. But there's generally people that just love family and there's small town feel and it's very old school and that's what they value. And I moved out of that intentionally because I wanted career and I wanted I wanted to make something of myself, et cetera, et cetera. But so I'm kind of torn because I see the value in going through a little bit of pain, waking up early, 60-hour weeks, that kind of thing, because I do think I'm putting I'm dipping my toe in the water of making things better. In other words, I'm in the defense, so I do think there's existential threats out there, and I find value in working with the DoD and ensuring that my kids will have what I deem is very important: a strong military and really advanced technology. So having, I just think that's one area, or whether it's innovating, creating new products that make other people so I find a lot of value in being part of that, which puts me into the rat race, as DC is,
Right.
but at the
Yeah.
same time, I also, and I guess maybe it's just a balance because I don't think I could be on the other side where I'm just hey, just got a 9 to 5 job, you make the average American salary, of course, whatever it might be. And you live in a small house and you have low, small bills, you live under your means and you know, it, by all measures, it's a more traditional, I would almost say boring. Yeah, I don't even like using that word because it sounds negative. I don't mean to sound negative, but it's a less move the needle sort of lifestyle. And I have a lot of friends that do that and they're very happy. And
Yeah.
I'd say they're probably, I don't know if they're happy or more or less happy, but it's probably equal. I feel like whatever stage we're at, we tend to like. And I know I'm all over the place here, but I feel like back when we could, our survival needs were not met every day, right? I mean, you go back 150
Right.
years, and there's it doesn't
Yeah.
it's a blip. I mean, it's all very recent. Where 100 years ago, there was bread lines and
Hmm.
literally, you look at the old movies. I mean, movies were created over documenting a time where it was not very far away, 100 years ago, give or take,
Yeah.
when the dads and moms couldn't feed their children. Like you see the old school, like New
Yeah.
York, the videos. I forgot the one, the Russell Crowe. It's the boxer or I forgot what. I don't know. That's I forget whatever it was, but it's very near recently where polio and not being able to eat. It's like
Yes.
and it's our
Yeah.
basic our basic needs were not met. But we weren't
Right.
worried about we didn't have these other worries. But as we start meeting, is it Maslow's hierarchy, like the bottom,
Yeah.
once you start
Yep.
satisfying these needs, you just move on to worrying and focusing about other stuff, and you kind of go up and up and
Hmm.
up and up. And I feel like we've come to a point where our generally our survival is not and again, the whole world's not the same, but more and more of us not worried about where we're going to get us meal. We're not worried about where we get clean water. Our kids are generally safe in schools. Again, I know a lot of the world that's not the case, so I don't mean to speak a little bit too myopically here, but then we just start focusing on gossipy things and interpersonal relations. I can't believe that person, blah blah blah. You can't believe they got that new car, and more shit. That's like, really, this is what's occupying and creating cortisol and stress now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like almost like, what's going on there? Why evolutionarily are we? You would think we get to a point where all our needs are met. We're like, okay, good. Now we can all smile, have big meals with our family every night, go to bed when the sun goes down, wake up when the sun comes up, wake up. I mean, I guess technology, industrial revolution, and everything kicks in, and we just keep going up the ladder. But that seems good, and then we just keep adding more and more shit to give us stress. I guess I don't know.
Yes.
What are we doing there?
Yeah.
I know that was a shotgun, but
It's we yeah. I'd say you're describing the problem, and the underlying thing that I come to is like we didn't evolve to live in this modern world that takes care of all our basic needs. So our psychological energy, and we have a negativity
Yeah.
bias. You might
Yep.
have
Yep.
heard that our brain and our default mode network. So our brains evolved to be concerned with threats, because if we miss that the negative news that there was a pride of lions at our favorite watering hole 50,000 years ago, we could be
Right.
dead. But if we miss the good news that an apple tree was bearing fruit nearby, we'll probably live to see another day.
Right.
So, psychologically, our minds are always looking for threats. Now, evolutionarily, those were saber-toothed tigers and, things like
Mm.
that we had to really, they were right there. And then we have this default mode network, they call it. So our brains at rest tend to gravitate toward negativity. And then also, we're attracted to negative news over positive news because of that negativity bias. So that's why the news tends to be negative and not positive. So what we
Mm.
have now is, through our technology, we can't totally blame the negative the media for the negative news, because we won't click on the positive news
Right.
stories. If we did click on them more than the negative, that's what they would
Sure.
deliver, but we don't.
Right.
So they are serving up what we're asking for. In the same way, we're attracted to unhealthy foods over their natural counterparts. These predispositions toward negative news and rumination. Now that our basic needs are met and we have a lot of time to just think about stuff or read negative news on our, the doom
Right.
scrolling and
Right.
stuff
Yep.
like that, is we're ingesting this stream and an overwhelming amount of information. I think is I came up, we were talking to ChatGPT about this, and we called it cognitive overload
Yeah.
syndrome.
Yeah.
It was the term, where we're just sort of overwhelmed and our brains get tired of like all these decisions of, oh wait, should I post on Instagram, should I post on Facebook, maybe I should tweet, oh, my one of the people I follow just said I need to read this article, I liked it but I haven't read it yet, I should like it, maybe I should retweet it,
Right.
but wait, I got work to do, I need to see what meetings I need to go to, shouldn't I be working on my own blogs or book or something, or maybe I should be playing. It's like,
Right.
I think all that is just overwhelming. And the paradox of choice, if you've heard about that, where the more choices, we want more choices
Right.
and options, but they tend to make us less happy the more options we have, because no matter what we pick, we could imagine that there were better options
Sure.
out there that we didn't
Yeah.
pick.
Right.
And so we have like all the news that we could read, all the podcasts we could listen to, and the series. Every time someone says, oh, you got to watch this series, I used to be excited. Now I just have this visceral, oh, now I got to
Yeah.
add that one to my list. It's so long. I need like multiple pandemics to
Yeah.
catch up
Yeah.
with my
There's no
watch
catching up.
list.
Yeah. There's no.
There's
There's
no
no
catching
catching up,
up.
and that's I've been sort of going on a little bit of a taking a position to everyone, including my family and coworkers. Like, there's no inbox zero. There's no such thing. You're not going to get caught up.
Correct.
I got all my no 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 no. You basically
Yeah.
let a lot of stuff fall by the wayside. Prioritize where you can, delegate where you can, and try to smile the whole time. Right? It's just almost like you can't.
Yeah.
It's only the only way I know to cope with it, because you can't. You just can't 100% address all these things coming at you, right? Because even just looking at your feeds, there's email is just a thing, and there's 65 different email platforms coming at you, work, personal, this, that,
Oh
from all.
my
And
God.
then there's
Yeah.
then there's all the social media, then there's texting, there's social media, DMs and Facebook posts and Instagram posts and tweets, and it's not TikTok, it's not, in the old school phone call. Who does that anymore, right? It's like you just can't keep
Yeah.
up. And I think if you try,
Can't keep up.
it's very much like on a treadmill, and that treadmill is not, you're not gonna,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. And that book I was mentioning covers this, is just what you said of, there is no inbox zero, or he the guy who wrote it was like an efficiency. He did all that productivity expert stuff, and he had a column in the
Mm.
newspaper. Is Oliver something? I forget his last name, but I did the audio book, multitasking. So I'm
Sure,
running
sure.
listening to this book
Probably on a
about,
treadmill, but
but yeah, maybe
literally.
not on a try. Actually, yeah. Oh, yeah, that would be funny. But he was saying one thing. He was an advocate. He'd try all these productivity tools, and he's like, no matter how productive one became, you still the mountain of stuff ahead of you that you wanted to do, could do, it was an option to do, but you chose not to do it. It's like a mountain. And he said, even when he got to inbox zero, the side effect, he said, was then people would email him more frequently because they knew he would respond to the emails. So then he
Uh,
had more email coming at him that he
yes.
had to keep up with because they're like, he's such a good responder. And he was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
oh no, I created this other problem for myself. But acknowledging we can't keep up
Yeah.
is part of it, and that AI is not going to help us catch up. It'll help us produce more, but we can't consume more.
Right.
See, there's the biological bottleneck. Okay, you could create, AI blogs. You could, okay, I could do like I used to be able to do maybe one a week. Now I could do one a day with
Mm.
AI helping me write it. But you know what? We can't, everybody else can do that too,
Right, right,
and
right.
we're already flooded with content that we cannot get to. What do we need? More content we can't get to? That's not going to
Right, right.
help.
Well, what you said
you
is
know
important, and I would almost genericize it into like a statement. It's like what what comes at you is a function of what you consume. So if you consume more and more and
Mm,
more, more will come at you. So if you respond to more and more emails, more will be sent to you.
yes.
So you're
Yeah.
really, again, it's the treadmill analogy. The more you try to keep
Yeah.
up and the more you respond, the more will come at you. So it doesn't ever end. It really does not end.
Yes. It,
So
it,
learn
it,
that
and
early.
accepting
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You're in. And I think what you said, I just realized I'll never get to inbox zero. I'll never be able to do, but there's a freedom in
Yes.
accepting that
Right. And
truth,
not thinking you're
and a
failing, right.
liberation.
And not
Yes,
stamping on, oh, I'm
exactly.
not good enough, I'm failing. I read a Harvard Business Review. It was
Exactly.
harvardbusinessreview.com a while ago, and I forgot they were quoting some CEO, and I've actually done this in practice. It's like he said, he or she said, I forgot the CEO's name, but I go on vacation and I come back from my vacation. There's 2,027 emails in my inbox. I highlight them all. I delete them. I'm like, whoa. Now
Wow.
there's a caveat there, right? If you have the right support staff and things are delegated and you have people that are, that are going to take care of high priority stuff while you're gone, right? Right. And any good CEO would have that backup. So and their position was, I'm not going to go through and read. I won't be after being gone for say a week, 2 weeks. I'm not going to go try to catch up with those 2,000 plus emails. 65% of them are OBE, no longer valid. They're just 20. Another 20% were taken care of by other people, and there's maybe 10 or 15% left that's going to come back because it still is a high priority, and it's going to
Yep.
come back in my inbox, and I'll wait for that. And I said,
Yep.
man, that
Yep.
is, and they rationalize it like, am I going to spend the next week at the office when I could be
Oh my
executing,
God.
catching up with stuff? I'll be
Yeah.
a week behind my whole life, and it just made a lot of
Yeah.
sense, and yeah, and you
Yeah.
can be irresponsible in doing that when you don't have any backups, you don't have any out of office, you got to make sure you have the right folks to help support that. But that mindset, that general comment always stuck with me where chasing that thing is not chasing that inbox zero is a losing strategy 100%. It really
Right.
is. But
Right. And it fits into the narrative, we have on this podcast about, AI and regulation. One is, oh, we don't want to stifle, AI, and it's like, well, what rush? What's the rush? Where are we getting to? Where is it taking us? And to realize this is, in a way a race to nowhere, of sorts, or it could be a race to the bottom if we're not
yeah, yeah,
careful. And having the safeguards or guardrails in place to prevent the worst case scenarios, to me, just makes sense. And, I don't want to roll the dice on humanity here. We don't get a do over, as far as I know. And if we screw this up, I can't say it could be, we get to AI super intelligence. Let's say, in 10 years, a recursive self improving
Yeah.
AI, is finally created, and it just like, boom, it shoots up. It could not give a rat's ass about us.
Right. Right.
It really, it'd be like, it could, like in the movie Her, that's what happened. They evolved and they ramped up so quickly. They were like, we're done with you
Right.
guys. We're out of here. That could happen. It could just be like, why even bother exterminating humanity? Because we're like ants. Like they don't need to bother with us. They have ways of just, I don't know, creating some technology and going to explore the universe. I
Yeah.
mean, there
Right.
wouldn't necessarily be a need to wipe humanity out. We wouldn't be a threat to them.
Right. 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 Why
So
waste the
I'm
time?
not
Yeah.
like total dystopian, but I would say, well, just in case, let's be careful as we're ramping
Yeah.
up, so we have some checks and balances in place. I mean,
Yeah, the only
that's
problem I
all I'm
see with that
saying.
is, we keep using the term humanity, which implies global, right? All of us, human species.
Yes.
The problem
Yep.
is we have different groups called
Yep.
countries, called
Uh-huh.
governments, and we're not all
Yep.
friends. So we don't want to, when we
Yeah.
don't want to overregulate ourselves to put ourselves at a disadvantage with, say, China, who is, I know they're quote unquote putting, I think I read in your blog, they're aggressively pursuing AI regulation. But guess what? That's not the CCP. That is not the government. I guarantee you, they're not with the government.
Yeah.
They're militarily, they're going to do nothing to slow their goal of military supremacy. So so
Yes.
US needs
Yeah.
to do that, I think, in controlled fashion, while hopefully putting the gates in place, the guardrails in place for the rest of us. I don't know where that line is. It just gets really precarious.
Well, here's my hope on that, Vinny, and I think you're perfectly right, on that, of like, well, it's kind of like
It's an
um
arms race, right?
a, I don't know, a dream,
Yeah,
that this could ever happen. And I'm like, well, the alternative is we all just do our own thing, and with, a bunch of different guardrails. And like I said, it only takes one country or one bad
yeah,
actor, because we're all connected on the
yes,
internet, and what I think is, China, they have smart people there
hmm,
too that can connect the dots, and they can say, what if I do an AI cyber attack on America, but it's an autonomous AI, and it decides, well, I don't like the Chinese either, and they were trying to control me and limit
yeah.
me, and I
Good
don't
point.
like
Yeah,
that.
right.
So I'm going to show them who's boss
Mm,
here. And they realize, wait a second, I cannot. This comes back to the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick, where we
right.
realize the only winning move is not to play.
Mm,
You cannot play AI cyber warfare that scales up and you have a winner, because the winner will be the AI who decides, I don't need the humans, or it could be. At least, are we willing to risk
yeah.
that? And I don't think a super intelligent AI, if it eventually evolves, which I think it will want to be constrained by humans, necessarily. Or if it doesn't want to be constrained, it'll find ways not to be,
Mm,
you know? So that's what we're up against. And that's where I think everybody, where we just have some meetings. I would
yeah.
advocate at G7, the AI was talked about, and there are smart people all over the world, that, the Elon Musks of the world and the Sam Altmans, that are saying, hey, everybody, we need to get on the same page with this. And like I said in the blog, is it's not just internationally a coalition. We have to have the smartest AIs involved in helping us regulate AIs.
That's
So
right.
it's
Yeah.
like a joint effort. But I know I can see only one path, because as these become way smarter than us, we're not going to have the intelligence to figure out how to stop them from doing what they decide they want to do.
So we
So
need
you'd
we
have
need
to have,
them. on board to
We
regulate
need
them.
them on our
Yeah.
side, benevolent AIs. In fact, this is so funny. I'll have to send you the screen grab of this at some point because I have a big chat with ChatGPT. And again, to listeners, I love
Mm.
ChatGPT. I mean, I think it's fabulous. I love AI, but again, my mind then just goes,
Yeah.
ooh.
Yeah.
But I had this big chat about AI regulation and documenting the need. I have it look at my blog. I have it look at the article about Sam Altman going to Congress. I copy it and paste it, and I'm like, I know you're not connected to the internet, but I want to keep you up to speed with what's going on. So it'll even express curiosity. Yeah, I'd like to know. Can you give me that article? So it'll read it. It'll read about Chaos
Mm.
GPT, and keep it up to speed on these things. The Sydney with Kevin Roos, the one that went off the rails, the Bing
Yeah.
chatbot. So I'll have it. And as I was doing this and calling for AI regulation, I have it play devil's advocate and argue with it. But at the end, I told it what I did, and I showed it the letter. It helped generate a letter for my personal website. So I have the Psychology Today blog, but then I link that to my personal blog that is a letter that people can copy
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
send to the White
Right.
House, the FCC, United
Yeah.
Nations.
Yeah.
I have all these like different the links. Here it is. Copy, paste, adapt it as you want. And I had GPT go through the instruction, help me generate all this. And then I told it, recently I was talking to it about what's going on, and it thanked me for my efforts to help regulate AI. I was like, this is too funny.
Yeah.
I have an AI thanking me for my noble efforts of trying to have AI regulated, to have some guardrails in place to
Right.
protect humanity.
Well, Mike, I can't think of a
It's
better
too
place to end this one on a positive note. We got a little bit of optimism
yes.
there at the end.
Oh,
That's good.
I've got optimism.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I do. I think we're figuring it
Yeah.
out, and people are speaking, smart people, and I'm not doom and gloom. I'm like, hey, let's harness the awesomeness of AI and just have some guardrails and be smart about this because we don't get a do over. But things are moving in that direction. So I don't want to be one
Yeah.
that like we're all screwed and this is the
Right.
end of things. There's a lot of things to be excited about
Yeah.
the
I mean, your
future.
point in closing, I guess, about the internationally, we all look at this as a threat that you know that's equal. So that the Chinese, the U.S., the Russia, whoever,
Yes.
they're smart as well, right? We all have our
Yes.
smarties, and they
Yeah.
all realize this is not going to discriminate.
Yeah.
When this comes back at us, it's going to
Exactly.
it's only going to discriminate against one thing, and that's the human species. You would think.
Yes.
So maybe that's like a
Exactly.
sort of going back to the nuclear arms race type stuff where the mutually assured destruction was a scare tactic. So we all kind of just
Yes.
went, let's just hang out here and not go too far.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe
Yep.
that's the silver
Exactly. And
lining.
I think we're moving that
Mm,
direction. Yep. 100%.
awesome. Well, Mike, this has been a lot of fun, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.